Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma Shri Guru Charana Randa Mohi Savadhana Ate Randa Mohi Savadhana Ate Yahara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Yara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite Guru Mukha Padmavakya Chittete Koriyai Kaya Koriyai Kaya Guru Mukha Padmavakya Chittete Koriyai Kaya Arana Kariho Mane Asa Kariho Mane Asa Arana Kariho Mane Asa Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Sindhu Adama Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Tukla Lokera Jivana Lokana Lokera Jivana Mahaprabhu Karo Deha Deho Mohe Pat Chaya Deha Deha Mohe Pat प्रभु करो दया देह मोहे पद छाया हे बेयाग सुख त्रिभाना हे बेयाग सुख त्रिभाना Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Shri Guru Charanana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma Banda Mohisa Mate Prasade Bhai Ke Bhavatori Ya Ya Krishna Prapti Ho Ya Hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Koriya Kaya Arna Kariyo Mane Shri Guru Charanarati Aise Magate Charane Rati Aise Magate Te Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Pure Sarva Asha Chakshudana Deo Ye Janme Janme Prabhu Saye Chakshudana Deo Janme Prabhu Saye Deve Gyan Hriday Prakashito Deve Prakashito Prema Bhakti Yate Avida Vinasayate Prema Bhakti Yate Avida Sate Vede Gaya Har Charito Vede Gaya Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janar Bandhu Karuna Sindhu Adama Janar Bandhu Lokana Lokira Jivana Jivana Mahaprabhu Karo Deya Deya Mohe Pad Chaya Deya Mohe Pad Chaya Ebeya Sakhatrivana Trivana Prabhupada Patita Pavana Prabhupada Patita Pavana Prabhupada Jaya Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvashesha Sunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine Gauravani Pracharine Nirvashesha Sunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasati Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya
page 17, and there is a book of reading for there, page 17. O Tulsi, beloved of Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire is to obtain the service of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has their wishes fulfilled, bestowing your mercy upon him to make them a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you will also grant me a residence in the pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of the cowherd damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna prays, may I always swim in the love of Shri Shri Radha and Govinda.
Prayasi Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namah Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilasi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilasi Yetamara Karanaloy Taravancha Purna Hoy Etamara Taranaloy Taravancha Purna Hoy Kripa Kori Korotare Vrindavanavasi Kripa Kori Korotare Vrindavanavasi Morayen Abilas Vilas Kunje Dioval Moraye Abilas Vilas Kunje Diovas Nayane Haribo Sada Yugala Ruparasi Nayane Haribo Sada Yugala Ruparasi Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namah Hey Nivedanadara Sakiru Anugata Koro Hey Nivedanadara Sakiru Anugata Koro Seva Nadi Koro Die Koro Nijadasi Sevadi Koro Die Koro Nijadasi Dina Krishna Dasi Koi Ayena Mora Hoy 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 Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadhayena Basi Sri Radha Govinda Preme Basi
Basi Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Basi Sri Radha Govinda Preme Yena Basi Namo Namo Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namo Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namo Yani Kani Japa Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Devi, 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 Tulsi Devi, Jaya Tulsi Devi, Jaya Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinde, 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 Jaya Vrinde.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajikacharya Astatad Srila Prabhupada ISKCON founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Canto 10, Chapter 43, and today we're going to finish up this chapter with text 39 and text 40. So text 39, Chanura Uvacha Na balo na kishorastvam balascha balinam varaha Lilaye bhohato yena sahasra dvipasatvabhrit Chanura uvacha Nabalo na kishorastvam balascha balinam varaha Lilaye bhohato yena Sahasra dvipasatvabhrit. Chanura uvacha. Chanura said, Na, not. Balaha, a boy. Na, not. Kishoraha, a youth. Balavam, you. Balaha, Balaram. Cha, and. Balinam, of the strong. Varaha, the best. Lilaya, has play. Ibaha, the elephant. Hataha, killed. Yena, by whom? Sahasra, of 1,000. Dvipa, elephants. Sattva, of the strength. Rit, the bearer. Translation. Chanura said, "You aren't really a child or even a young man, and neither is Balaram, the strongest of the strong. After all, you playfully killed an elephant who had the strength of 1,000 other elephants." You can repeat. Chanura said, "You aren't really a child or even a young man, and neither is Balaram, the strongest of the strong. After all, you playfully killed an elephant who had the strength of 1,000 other elephants." And there's a short commentary by Jiva Goswami. "You are not a youth, and Balaram is not weak, having little strength similar to a child. Rather, he's the best among the strong, since he killed an elephant casually." Since Chanura saw Balaram carrying the tusk of the elephant on his shoulder, he thought that Balaram had killed it. So we'll go on to text 40. Tasmad bhavadbhyam balibhir yodavyam nanayo travai mai vikrama varshneya balena sa mushtikaha. Therefore, you too should fight powerful wrestlers. There's certainly nothing unfair about that. You, O descendant of Vrishni, can show your prowess against me, and Balaram can fight with Mushtika. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 43rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Krishna Kills the Elephant Kuvalayapida. And to this verse, I will read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's is just one sentence, and Jiva Goswami and Sanatana Goswami's are very similar. So I'll just read Jiva Goswami's. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, "You should fight with wrestlers who are strong like me, not with boys who are not equal in strength to you." And Jiva Goswami writes, "You should fight with many wrestlers. You should fight with many strong wrestlers. The plural is used because all wrestlers were eager to fight one after the other. Fighting them one at a time is not against the rules. How can I fight with you?" This must be Krishna saying. And then he's saying, "Show whatever prowess you have to me. I will not show my," and then Krishna says, "I will not show my prowess. We cowards are not suitable to play in the king's assembly." And then he would reply, "You are a descendant of Vrishni. We know this." So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Namane Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Nirvishesha Shunyavada Shatarisha Karine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Praying for the blessings of Maharaj and all the Vaishnavas that I can render this service to Srimad Bhagavatam. So here we have a very interesting conversation going on here between Chanura and Krishna. And one may wonder, why is this conversation here in the Srimad Bhagavatam? But every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, every section is beautiful and instructive for us. So I just wanted to review the conversation that's going on here. So Chanura, basically, he said to Krishna, after Krishna entered the assembly, and people, all the people sitting there in their seats were glorifying Krishna, and then the music began playing, and Chanura came and spoke to Krishna, and basically he said, "You both are well respected and skillful in wrestling. The king wants to see your prowess for himself. We must please the king in all respects, and then we will achieve all good fortune. It is known that cowherd boys wrestle with each other as they tend their animals in the forest. Therefore, let's do what the king desires." And then what does Krishna respond? "Yes, we must satisfy the king's desires, but we are just young boys and should play with those of equal strength. Otherwise, it will be considered irreligious and taint the members of the audience." And interestingly, in Krishna book, Prabhupada adds a little sentence there. He says, Krishna thus indicated that the celebrated strong wrestlers should not challenge Krishna and Balaram to fight. So by saying like, oh, we're just young boys, it's going to be irreligious because we're not equal. Basically he's saying we're not equal because, I am stronger than you. So this is the problem. And then Shanura replies, and I'm going to quote, this is from Krishna book, what Prabhupada translates Chanura's response. "My dear Krishna, we can understand very well that you are neither a child nor a young man. You are transcendental to everyone, as is your big brother Balaram. You have already killed the elephant Kuvalayapida, who was capable of fighting thousands of other elephants. You have killed him in a wonderful way. Because of your strength, it behooves you to compete with the strongest wrestlers among us. I therefore wish to wrestle with you. And your elder brother Balaram will wrestle with Mushtika." So here's the conversation between Chanura and Krishna, and then Chanura's response. And we could go at look at this in many different angles, and two angles that I wanted to focus on today was, one is how Krishna underplays himself and says, "Oh, I'm just a young boy. How can I wrestle with you?" And just to explore that more, how Krishna sometimes he does that. He belittles himself to bring out certain emotions of the person he's doing it with. And then the other one is Chanura's response to Krishna, and how he's actually, if you just read this shloka that we read about Chanura Uvacha, and he's saying like, you're actually not a young child or boy, you're very strong. If you read that verse and you didn't see the Chanura Uvacha, it sounds like perfect philosophy, right? Like he's glorifying Krishna. So I just wanted to explore that also, that knowledge is not enough. There has to be something more to that. It has to be realized and to transform the consciousness, because he's still wanting to fight with Krishna, even though he knows. So first, to talk a little bit about this aspect of Krishna belittling himself in, to elicit certain responses from the people that he's doing it with. So one thing is Krishna doesn't have an inferiority complex, and he's not afraid to sometimes make sound like, oh, I'm just I'm not so good or at this, or I'm very small, I'm like this, and it's all for a purpose. It's not for any other reason. So I've thought of some other examples in the scriptures. First of all, in this example, when Krishna is belittling himself, it's to make Chanura pump up his pride and feel like, oh yes, this is I can do it. This is just a little boy, and just make him more feel, okay, I'm ready to wrestle. Now I thought of another example is Matsya, the story of Matsya, when Satyavrata Muni had that little fish, Matsya, in his pot, and then he brought it to another little bigger container when the fish kept growing, and finally he had to put the fish, the Matsya, in the ocean. And then Matsya said, no, don't put me here. The big fish are going to eat me. I'm very scared. And then, so that, in that case, it was to elicit a response of Satyavrata Muni to just, from my understanding, is to bring just wonder and amazement in his devotees. No, you're not an ordinary person. First of all, that's not possible for ordinary fish. And you're talking, this is not ordinary. It was just to elicit a response of amazement. And then in Varaha, the story of Varaha, it's kind of similar, how he came as a little boar out of the nostril of Brahma and then grew, again, to create that sense of wonder in his devotees. And Vamanadev, that's interesting, how he came as a little boy and he said, I just want 3 steps of land, not much. And in that case, we could see it as, Bali, to elicit Bali Maharaja's sense of, okay, I guess, why are you asking for so little? I'm so charitable, I can give so much. But another way, it's also to, the whole purpose was to bring his devotee to let go of all these things and surrender completely to him. And then I was also thinking about the story of Shakshi Gopal, when that Brahmana came and said, the older Brahmana has now taken back his promise. He promised that he was going to marry his his daughter to me, and now he's retracted that. And I'm worried about his religious principles. Can you come and bear witness to this? And Shakshi Gopal, the deity, said, how can I come? I've never heard of a deity walking. And then the devotee said, well, if you can talk, then you can certainly walk also. So in this way, Krishna was saying, I'm just a deity. How can I walk? And in this case, it was to invoke the emotion of complete faith and trust of the devotee, and to show the example how devotee has full faith that the deity is non-different from Krishna himself. Another example is Lord Chaitanya with Keshava Kashmiri. So when Keshava Kashmiri came into town, he was very proud, and to pump up his pride even more, Lord Chaitanya Nimai said, I'm just an ordinary teacher of grammar. I don't know much. You're so scholarly. You please recite the glories of Ganga. We'll be very happy to hear these glories. So Keshava Kashmiri, his pride got higher and higher and higher. And even when Lord Chaitanya quoted one of the verses of the 100 verses by memory, the scholar was very shocked. And Lord Chaitanya kind of just dismissed it. Oh, anyone can have that. It's just an ability called, some people have that. Shruti Dhara, they can remember things, so it's not a big deal. So the purpose of that was to get Keshava Kashmiri to, his pride to go very, very high, so that at the climax, he could be cut down. His pride could be cut down, and he could learn his lesson and take shelter of Lord Chaitanya. And then, of course, if you think about the intimate devotees of Krishna, how Krishna likes to belittle himself or make himself the servant of his devotees, like Arjuna, driving Arjuna's chariot, the Pandavas going as a peace messenger, or Bhishma. Bhishma actually, in that pastime of Bhishma wanting Krishna to break his vow, it's showing that Krishna prefers to be known as Bhakta Vatsala than one who is, the one who always keeps his vows. Because he had made a vow that he was not going to lift any weapon in the battle of Kurukshetra. But to protect Arjuna and also to please Bhishma, who wanted to see Krishna break his vow, he took up that chariot wheel and rushed towards Bhishma. So Krishna doesn't mind looking bad and breaking his vow in front of people, because he's more concerned with pleasing his devotees. That's more important to him than being like the perfect moral person. And then, of course, in Braj, Vrindavan, Krishna takes the inferior position. The coward boys are like, saying, oh, you're weak. We can defeat you in a wrestling match any day. And Mother Yashoda is chastising Krishna with a stick. And the lovers of Krishna are also chastising Krishna. So Krishna in Braj, he likes that, to be in that position of inferior to his devotees. So in this way, I was just meditating on how Krishna uses this technique he's using here with Chanura to elicit certain responses from his devotees. And I also thought of one other aspect of this that we can apply in our life, and just how Krishna is making himself look very innocent and small, and like, oh, I can't do very much. we can use that same trick with our mind. You know, like how Vamana said, oh, I mean, I just need 3 steps of land. It's not much. We can also do that with our mind, because our mind sometimes gets overwhelmed with big, big things. But if we just say, no, no, don't worry. All we're going to do is read 5 minutes of Srimad Bhagavatam every day before we eat breakfast or something like that. Just small little things. And even though it seems very small and innocent, but that 5 minutes a day will add up, add up, add up, and that will have an effect. I remember when I first heard Vaisheshika Prabhu come up with that slogan, be a sage page by page, you know, and he has broken up how many pages you need to read a day to complete a certain a book in a certain amount of time. And I think it's only to read Bhagavatam in 5 years, you just have to read 8 pages a day, which is not much at all. And in 5 years, you'll be done with Srimad Bhagavatam. So all these things, like, it seems small, but they have a major effect. Just like a drop of water that falls on a stone every day, just one drop, one drop, one drop. But if you look in a long term, that stone gets worn down from that one drop of water. And Rupa Goswami actually warns. He says, if you still desire to enjoy your family and your friends and your worldly attachments, don't go to the bank of the Jamuna and see the smiling face of Govinda as he's standing there, casting his sidelong glance. He places his flute to his lips, which seem like newly blossoming twigs. His transcendental body, bending in 3 places, appears very bright in the moonlight. So he's saying, don't go there, because all of your material attachments will be finished. So this is the warning, that even though it may seem innocent, but there's nothing small about Krishna. Even though it may seem small, it can have a major effect. And even when we're spreading Krishna consciousness, we can remember that too, that there's no small thing if someone hears one holy name, or if they touch one of Srila Prabhupada's books, or if they get a piece of prasadam. These are things that can catapult them out of the material realm and into it, start their journey, their spiritual journey. So in this way, I just I was looking at that angle about how Krishna's doing this to elicit certain responses from his devotees, and how we can use it with our mind to help us to also just do small steps. And Krishna is so amazing that even these small steps, he can take over our consciousness and completely transform our lives. Now, the other aspect of this conversation that struck me was how Chanura is saying such amazing things here. He's saying, according to Srila Prabhupada in the Krishna book, you are transcendental. You're not young boys. You're very strong. You just killed an elephant who's capable of killing thousands of other elephants. And so in this way, he's glorifying Krishna, which is interesting too. Krishna kind of made him glorify him by his response. But it made me think that sometimes we may know things, and we may even be able to speak things really well, but it may not have an effect on our own heart. So knowledge doesn't necessarily mean transformation. So spiritual knowledge actually has to be realized and revealed in the heart. Like in the Bhagavatam, it says, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye. So Krishna in the heart, he revealed transcendental knowledge to Brahma. A living spiritual teacher is needed if we render service to the Guru, and we serve the devotees, that will reveal the spiritual knowledge within the heart. In our Bhakti Yoga Club this last on Wednesday, Vinod Prabhu gave class, and he talked about the topic of spiritual knowledge, and he used the example of ChatGPT, and he said, could we just get spiritual knowledge from that? Like we just type, you can get all the knowledge from that. Isn't that enough? Do you really need a spiritual master? And some of the students were actually thinking that would be, that's. But he was making the point that it's we need the example, living example of somebody who's living the spiritual knowledge, and that can have an effect on our lives. That will make it real and alive to us. And spiritual knowledge is not so much about entering the brain, it's about transforming the heart. And that happens when the guru, the devotees, Krishna are pleased, and then they will reveal that knowledge within our heart. So knowledge should not be lip deep, but should be realized knowledge. I heard one class where one devotee was making the example of how to hear in such a way that it enters deeply. It's not just in through one ear, out through the other, but it enters into the heart. And he was saying that we can look at different examples. Once he says the chataka bird. The chataka bird, the bird only drinks water that falls from the cloud. It doesn't take water from anywhere else. So take the knowledge from a pure source. That was the first thing. Make sure it's coming from the pure source. And that's another thing about, just getting spiritual knowledge online or through other, you don't know where it is coming from. Like if it's actually the pure source. The second thing was the swan. The swan is able to take the essence of anything. And so while we are hearing, we can try to see how this is applied to me. What can I take from this into my life? And the other was the parrot. The parrot is able to, of course, we don't want to be parrot-like in the sense of just repeating just without realization. But the example was that whatever we hear, we can try to share it with others. And that will have an effect on, it actually make it go deeper. If you just hear, but to keep it to yourself, it's not as powerful as if you share your realizations with others. And the fourth one was like a fish, how a fish doesn't close its eyes, it's in the water. In the same way, when we're hearing or when we're reading, to be so absorbed that, there's no distractions. And that can have a deep effect on our consciousness if we're absorbed while we're hearing. Then transformation can take place. So those are some thoughts about how knowledge has to be revealed. And even though Chandra here is speaking such wonderful knowledge, in the next part, he's still saying, therefore, you should fight with us. And he's still completely proud and thinking that, there's no way that Krishna can defeat us, that we're safe, we're protected. We have Kamsa here. He's going to take care of us. And that also reminded me about how Maya is so strong, how she can bewilder us. Even though we may know something, she can still bewilder our consciousness. In the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a section where Shukadeva Goswami is talking about the Grihamedis and the Grihastas, and he says the Grihamedis, they're spending their lives, wasting their lives, and they have, even though they're seeing other people around them are struggling and suffering and eventually dying, but they think, I'll be okay, I'm safe. And he calls them fallible soldiers. They have faith in the fallible soldiers, like family, society. I'm okay. I have my setup. I'm fine. Nothing will happen to me. And in the purport, Prabhupada mentions it's like the foaming bubbles of the ocean that just come and go. But somehow we think that we can be safe in those little bubbles that are coming up and going. So that's how strong Maya is. And never to underestimate, because sometimes when we read these things, we may think, oh yes, that's, that can happen to somebody else. But to also remember that could also happen to me, and to be humble enough and always to stay under the shelter of the Vaishnavas, the Guru, because they can keep us safe from that habit, that tendency to become overcome by the illusory energy. So we talked about how Krishna's putting himself down for reaching certain purposes. And then we talked about Shanura, speaking the knowledge, but not having actually the realization. And there's other examples in the scriptures of that too, like Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, other examples where they can speak, but then their actions are not matching their words. And would anyone like to add anything to this? Any thoughts?
Those things have value when there is bhakti. In other words, those reactions, we can have reactions like that, right? In the case of these pastimes of Krishna, these reactions are extremely valuable because they're coming from a loving heart. Whoever is reacting to him, who is a devotee. Those who are not devotees is a different story. And another thing is that I was listening to a class by Marendra recently on the Gajendra series. I think it was number 2. And he made a point. There is I think it's a Hindu word for it. I don't know what it is. But he was saying whatever goes in goes out. You put garbage in, garbage out. Or virtue in and virtue, good in and good out. In other words, he's kind of encouraging the audience by using that example to put in as much as possible to cleanse the consciousness in the form of reading the books, discussing the pastimes, chanting the holy name, engaging in activities of devotion, so where they can permeate the consciousness. And that comes out in the form of preaching, in the form of sharing, in the form of giving to others. But he gave an example, that we have time, about a principal in a school. And he didn't say whether it was in India or was in the West. He didn't say, but he was caught because he was engaging in illicit activities, sexual illicit activities with his students. And when he was caught, he repented. He was very, very sorrowful about it. And he said, I don't know how this happened. I don't know how I came to this point of abusing children, some of the children. And it's because he was sitting in front of the computer, imbibing all kinds of nefarious things into the consciousness to the point where eventually whatever went in had to come out. So he was given this double example that we as devotees have the responsibility, the choice, and the responsibility to put in as much as we can in terms of devotional activities, devotional sound vibration, so that it can cleanse the heart, cleanse the consciousness, and it can come out in ways that are beneficial to others. Thank you very much for a class. Very interesting, by the way.
Thank you so much. Yes, that point about flooding the consciousness with a spiritual sound vibration. Like I've heard somebody say, keep the spiritual sound vibration always going in our life. Like even throughout the day, we can keep the holy name going, or just always have something. Or if we have some spare time, we're in line in the checkout, pull out our phone, we could read a verse. So somehow or other, keeping the sound vibration always going in our consciousness. That's, just like pouring the what is it? Like the milk into the pot that has ink in it, and slowly the ink will come out. If you keep pouring, then all the dirty things will come out. Yeah, thank you so much. Anything else anybody would like to add? Please.
So some devotees, we know we should always hear, and we know we should purify ourselves by the sound vibration. But inevitably, we become attracted to something else. So how should we how should a devotee view that? I mean, the devotees are trying, but then they have some interest in I'm not even saying something terrifically nefarious, but Amazon's there, or scrolling on Facebook and that sort of thing.
So what to do with those desires?
What should our attitude be about these these detours?
Oh, did you? Yeah. Wanna-
Another example that Amarendra Prabhu was giving is that the mind naturally gets attracted, the senses get attracted to the objects of the senses. It's only natural. So in the case of Ajamil, for example, the the falling down was not caused by him seeing the activities of the prostitute and the man when he was out in the forest or someplace. The fall down came when he again looked, not when he first looked, when he again looked, when he chose to indulge in that experience that he initially had by seeing. So the problem is not that the senses are attracted to the objects. That's not it. But to do something about it and just to divert oneself from the path of devotion into a path of material activity, that's what he was talking about.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I was also thinking that actually, we may think we're being victimized by the illusory energy, but we always have a choice. We're never a victim. We always have a choice, whether I want this or I want Krishna or Maya. We can always make that choice. And that example of that person who's hugging the tree and saying, "Let go, tree, let go of me," but he's the one who's holding on to the tree. So we're holding on. We're the ones, because of our attachments, that we're holding on to it. So I like that point, that even if diversions come, if we can, and devotee association is very powerful too, because they can help us straighten us up. If a Jamil had somebody who could give him good advice, like, if he revealed his heart to somebody and somebody could help him in that situation, that would have helped him come back. Yeah. And for Bharat Maharaj also. Yeah. Yeah.
The same thing can be said for
Mother
Bart
Krishna.
Maharaj, because he became attached to a deer and there was no good association to really say, don't do it.
Yeah.
We also have to understand what is our adhikar, what level we're at.
Yeah.
So there's also that difficulties come also if one tries to be on a higher level than they are. Just like when you were teaching school, you have the grades that the children go through. So one has to know, like a good physician knows, or Ayurvedic physician knows, to take the pulse, like what is necessary at a particular stage of devotional service for one to actually be absorbed and to not try to imitate someone else's stage, but to, step by step. And those things are given to us in the different books of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, how to actually see where we are and then function on a level that's sustainable for us, which allows for growth. But if we try to go too high, too quick, then it's not sustainable.
Yes. In that Gajendra pastime, it mentions that in the purport. Prabhupada says, you have to keep your body and mind also fit so that you can stay strong to when Maya attacks, that you're in a position that you're strong. Just like Gajendra was in the water, and that was not his normal position. So he was weak in that position. So like Mother Krishna Priya is saying, we have to know how to take care of the body and mind also so that we're in a good position. So, yeah.
That was in, but she handed me the mic. But one thing is not just devotee association, but also senior devotee association by example, looking always at the examples of senior devotees, whether they are in Prabhupada's books or, in our lives. because how do they avoid? What do they do? How does somebody just imbibe Krishna all the time? I mean, that's one way to really stay the straight path.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We're so fortunate we have all these examples. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki jai.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvanda Maravindanalaya Tatam Bhagavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundaratam Kandar Akom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Andaniya Sakale Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Bhakti Kayanti Gira Praganti Ananda Maya Sadhu Jala Vigrasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Tamaham Bhajami
Go. Namo Vishnu Pachaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Samaniti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacha Vishesha
Shunyamati, Ashachade, Tarane. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Apunijananda Sri Advaita Gajada Siva Sadi Robata Vrindai Sri Advaita Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Ramanujjanata Sri Advaita Gajada Siva Sade Gorat Brenda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ramanujjanata Advaita Gajada Siva Sade Gorat Brenda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hachi Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Rama Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Nayarat, I'm looking on a lot, I'm looking on a lot. Nayarat, I'm looking on a lot, I'm looking on a Nayarat, hey, Radhe, Radhe. Radhe, 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 Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jai Om.
Brunamrita Swadanam Sarvatmastapanam Paramvijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shakti Tadrapita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Etadrishi Tavakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Dordaiva Midrishami Janina Nuraga Trinada pi sunichena tarora pi suhishuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmani ishvare avadad bhaktir hoitaki twai ainanda tanuja kingaram patitam mam vishname bhavam buddha Kripaya Kavavam Gajas Nita Duli Sadrusham Vachintaya Nayanam Galashu Daraya Vadanam Gad Gadarudaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanama Yugayata Shena Chakshusha Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahena Me Ashlishyava Padam Pranam Rastumam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva Yatatava Vendatolam Badomat Prananatas Saiva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself or in a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen in the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant the holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end, stating your name? Oh, Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment, but 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me.